Hey guys, how's it going? Cress here. Today I wanted to talk a little bit about the 5 new gems that were released, and I have been seeing quite a bit of hate actually among other YouTubers or on Reddit about these gems, and some of them I don't think are as bad as they're making them out to be, so I wanted to give you my quick thoughts on them and let you know whether you end up getting one as a drop or if you find a cheap one on the market, maybe what you should be looking for. And just getting into it. I'm going to start with the 1-star gem. However, my thoughts on 1-star gems as a whole is that even free-to-play players, you kind of want to avoid these, and once you get enough gem power on your account to have 2-star gems at rank 5, you have literally no reason to ever use a 1-star gem. The only time I'd see someone using a 1-star gem is maybe a light spender who doesn't care much about resonance, and then they want to awaken a slot. There's a small portion of players maybe in that spot. However, if you're one of those players, this would not be one of the gems I would get to rank 10 and awaken a slot. A lot of 1-star gems have really great effects, like Berserker's Eye, Everlasting Torment, Blessed Pebble. Like, those are 3 really good ones that I don't see any reason why you'd use anything else. Carson's as well is really good. So this one, the fact that it just kind of increases the duration of shields, and then your shields also reduce the duration of loss of control effects. It's kind of ambiguous what is actually reduced. I'm pretty sure it's the duration of a loss of control effect, which in something like PvP, with this effect being reduced on top of how much CC is there in PvP, this will probably do nothing. The shield duration increase really doesn't do a whole lot. Maybe there's some specific build for a certain class that maybe you can find use out of this, but for your gems, you kind of want them to be more overall good, and then a very small scenario where it could be good, it's just not worth it. Into the 2-star gems, I first want to talk about Kir Sling here. So, you can see you have a 15% chance, and this is at rank 1, where you'll release a burst of light that blinds enemies. It causes total loss of control for 1.3 seconds. So, the effect itself is powerful. However, it doesn't deal any damage, and it is on a 20-second cooldown. So, the time where this effect would be useful would be something like a challenge rift, if you're pushing kind of higher than your combat rating. And in that case, I'd say you're still better off using different gems. Maybe if you're on like a melee class that can't take much use out of some of these better 2-star gems, like Follower's Burden, Bloody Reach, even like Cutthroats. If those don't work too well on your class, maybe this could slot in. But it would definitely be like my 5th or 6th 2-star gem in that case. It wouldn't be something I'd be excited to be using. It would kind of just be slotting it in because it's better than no effect. However, the Volatility Shard, this one I think is very powerful. So, generally, an issue with 2-star gems is it's hard to find a full 6 with good effects, typically. And this is one where I would consider it one of the better 2-star gem effects. So it's only a 6-second cooldown, and the trigger is whenever you defeat an enemy, and that's very easy. So if you're defeating any type of enemy every 6 seconds, this effect is going off, and it does an AoE explosion, and the damage is solid. Like if you compare it to Lightning Core, which is on a 20-second cooldown, Lightning Core does have a higher base damage percentage, but then you can see that's about 3 times higher, but the cooldown is more than 3 times as high. And with something like overworld farming, dungeon farming, something like the reliability of it being every 6 seconds is a lot more useful than the higher burst damage on something like Lightning Core. So this is a gem where I'd actually consider slotting it into what I'm working with right now. Maybe replacing Follower's Burden if I end up not playing as much Necromancer. Otherwise, something like Power and Command, just because the damage increase while high percentage is kind of unreliable with its switching, and it's not something you can really play around, because not using your abilities is definitely worse than waiting to get an extra powerful like gem effect out of. So Volatility Shard, really good. I'd say maybe even S tier for a 2-star gem. This would definitely be one that I'd kind of shoot for as one of my first 2-star gems to rank 5. So once the price is either more in line with the other 2-star gems, or if I get enough random runes to craft a couple of these, I might try replacing one of my gems for this. And we have 2 5-star gems next. I'll go over the Hellfire Fragment first. So, you can see this one is a 20-second cooldown, which is less exciting for a gem. The damage is 45% base plus a flat amount, and then I believe... Oh, it's once you get it to rank 3, where enemies struck by multiple blazes take additional damage from the hits. So I've seen a lot of people say the damage on this is pretty trash and not that good. But if you compare it to something like Zwenson's, which even though the gem itself is not great, I do see people say that the hit on Zwenson's does do pretty good damage for like open world farming and other activities like that. And you can see the damage is actually pretty similar. This Zwenson's only has a 5% higher base damage at rank 1, and then of course you can get, as a free-to-play player, you can get these up to about rank 3 pretty easy, 4 in time, 5 is pretty far out of reach, but technically possible. Anything higher than that, not possible. And this is one where, depending on gem prices for free-to-play, once this has been out for a little bit longer and the price kind of stabilizes and normalizes to something, especially if it's close to like a Zwenson's or a Chip of Stone Flesh in the price, I would actually consider this a gem to buy if you can pick up like a 3 or 4 star for a good price, because what matters most is getting your resonance as cheap as possible. So if this is one of the cheaper resonance gems because people don't like it, the effect is still good, and while it doesn't do an insane amount of damage, it is still extra damage, and the only trigger effect is using a skill, so any class can use this with any ability set, so anything that you don't have to try to use and you get free damage out of it every 20 seconds, that's really good, especially if it ends up being one of the cheaper gems. And Concentrated Will, this is pretty similar, where you can see you get a pretty similar, like comparable damage to something like a Zwenson's, or what is Howler's? Howler's is much higher, but so compared to Zwenson's, it does a little bit more damage actually. And this one is on a 6-second cooldown, which is really good. That's kind of what you're looking for the cooldown based gems, is anything with a low cooldown. And at rank 3, every time it activates, you're getting bonus damage and movement speed for 2 seconds. So that means 4 seconds of basically downtime on the gem, and if you have beneficial effect duration at a high percentage, you might even be closer to like 3.5 seconds or 3 seconds of downtime where you're not getting any bonus out of this gem. And that's pretty powerful because the damage is good, and you get a bonus to your damage and movement speed, which are both stats that you want increased as much as possible. And compared to something like Blood-Soaked Jade or even Bottled Hope, depending on your server, these will be very difficult to get as a free-to-play player, even from the market, where you're kind of just hoping for like a lucky drop if you want to use one of these gems. You can see on my server, even the 2 stars are getting close to max price. I think it is some price manipulation, but still something to consider as a possibility, where if you're lucky enough to get a 3 or 4 star of this, or if you see one on the market that's not too high in price, let me see, like in mine, you can get a 3 star right now for 52k, which I would actually say is quite good. Four stars are really high right now. Maybe in like a month or two those will kind of normalize to a real price, but this is a gem where the effect is good, low cooldown, gives you everything you want. However, the only problem is you have to use a dash skill to activate it. So depending on your class, that can be a little difficult. And I know even for a class like Wizard, where your teleport would activate that gem, and it's something you have 3 charges of, low cooldown, so you can kind of always keep it active. Typically for stuff like dungeons, I usually use a build that doesn't even include teleport. Same with Necromancer, where even though there is a skill with your pants that you can use to create Wraith form into a dash skill, or you can use the Bone Wall as a dash skill with a chest legendary. Those tend to kind of mess up your build where you have to use a skill that you don't want to slot in. And so in those cases, I'd say it makes the gem a little bit harder to use than something like Hellfire Fragment. So if you're playing like Monk, for example, or Barbarian, I know I haven't played it myself, but from what I can see, they tend to use a dash skill in their builds anyway. If you can do that, this would be a gem I'd look for, especially if it ends up being more on the cheaper side with Resonance, where if you can pick up like a 3 or 4 star pretty cheap, and you're on a class that can make use of it, I would kind of prioritize this as one of my first gems to buy actually. Just because you're getting everything you need, you get it at a cheap price. It's better than buying something like a Zwenson's Haunting, which will kind of only help you a little bit in overworld farming, where this has more use cases since you're getting damage, move speed, and a damage base without having to kill an enemy, instead just activating when you use a skill. Dash skill though. But I'd say overall my rankings, Heartstone, I'd give this F tier. Nobody should ever use this. Even if you want to get 1-star gems to rank 10, this would not be one of the gems you'd make rank 10. There's just low application uses for it. I would not, just avoid that. Kir Sling, depending on your class, you might not have a good full 6 set of 2-star gems to use, and this could slot in as maybe your 6th 2-star gem to rank 5. But overall, I'd say try to avoid this one as well. I'd probably put it... The effect is good, so it makes me want to put it at C tier, but it not dealing any damage kind of makes it not that good. You do get a bonus damage to blinded enemies, which is okay, but it's a small percentage. I'm not sure how long it lasts, maybe just for as long as the blind, which I believe goes up to around... By rank 5, you'd probably have like 2-ish seconds. So, low duration, low damage percentage. Yeah, either like 6th gem in your set, or not at all. So, C tier at best. Volatility Shard, for a 2-star gem, this is definitely one of the better ones. I'd say probably top 3 out of 2-star gems overall. And then more classes can take use out of this. All you have to do is defeat an enemy. So I'd actually rate it S tier, just because it's easy to use among any class, and then the effect is powerful. Hellfire Fragment. This is another one where it's easy to use. The only real downside to this is the 20-second cooldown over like a 6-second cooldown. However, the trigger being just using a skill, and it giving you kind of free damage for just playing however you want to play, I'd say this gets at least an A tier. And if it's a cheaper gem, that makes it even better, since it's actually attainable as a free-to-play player very easily. Concentrated Will. This one is more class dependent. If you're playing on like a monk or something, this would be very easy to use. However, some other classes, not all your builds incorporate a dash skill into them, but you could try to fit it in. I'd say if it's a cheaper gem, I'd say it's like A tier, where you'd probably slot it in just because it's cheap. However, overall, I wouldn't try to go for this unless you know you can make use out of it very often. So that makes me kind of want to put it more in the B tier. Alright, I hope this video helps you guys out. I haven't tried any of these gems yet myself, just because of the price, but once they kind of fall more in line, I'm going to look to incorporate the Volatility Shard into my build, and maybe if I get a lucky drop on one of these or see a good price on the market, I'll pick up one of the 5-star gems if possible. But let me know if you guys have tested them out down below in the comments. And if you've watched this whole video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. And peace!